What's up everyone, my name's Aaron from GamesRib, and today we're taking a look at another Shindougo collection. This one is very close to my heart. It's the Simpsons collection, bringing across games from basically most systems you can pretty much think of, including Arcade, Atari ST, Mega Drive, Game Boy, Game Gear, and all that goodness, all in this collection. So if you're a Simpsons fan, I think you're going to enjoy this. Well, you're definitely going to enjoy this. Let's take a deep dive into the Simpsons collection for the Sega Dreamcast.
So yes, this is it. This is the Simpsons collection for the Sega Dreamcast, bringing basically together all of the best of the Simpsons games onto one platform. So we're going to start off by taking a look at images, which is always the credits, which is great because it shows the credits of basically all of the devs who've been involved in the emulators so far. Then we're taking a nice little deep dive into the music area, which I like because I like the fact it's also got the kind of Nirvana spoof album cover for it. Kind of makes sense, right? And my favourite, the adverts.
Look!
Oh!
It's a videotape.
Put it in! Put it in!
Boring.
Bart! Go to bed!
Sure thing, Dad.
It's Bart versus the Space Mutants for your NES.
Rumba.
Only Bart Simpson can save the Earth.
Okay. Ooh.
Get the Simpsons game for your NES from Acclaim.
Now, as you can see, the collection, like I said, boasts a huge amount, to be fair, of consoles all in one area. Like I said, Game Boy, Genesis, PS1. You even got mods here like Quake mods and Doom mods, which is great to see because we've not had those in the collection yet. But let's start off by taking a look at the Amiga. That's right, the Amiga being emulated here. And it actually runs pretty darn well. Don't get me wrong, I actually don't like this title. I think it's not the best Simpsons game, but it runs pretty damn favourably and the sound works really, really well. On top of that, the controls are pretty damn spot on, pretty spontaneous, or pretty responsive I should say. But yeah, loving it. Next up, I have actually covered the arcade collection before. It's the exact same one in this collection. Now, it's not the best arcade conversion as yet, and what I mean by that is it's not 100% there, but it's in the collection nonetheless. Now, this one kind of tickled my fancy. What I mean by that is I don't think I've seen Atari ST emulation before, or if I have covered it, I certainly can't remember, but I gotta say, really pretty impressed. The sound is all there, although as you're about to see, the game feels a little bit like it's running in slow motion. Now, I don't know if I'm right when I say that, but let's just take a look. Now, the crazy thing is, when I first actually started this version of this game, basically the Atari ST version, I actually thought it was running a little bit slow. To be fair, I went and referenced it online, and it turns out it's not actually running slow. It's just the game itself is a lot slower than the other versions out there, so I'm not quite sure why that is. I don't know if that was a design choice, but it just feels like Bart's movement just feels a little bit sluggish. So it's not an issue with the actual emulation, because as you can hear, the sound is great, and the movement is actually, to be fair, pretty damn spot on. So it's great to see some Atari ST emulating on the Dreamcast, and especially with this one. Next up, we've got my favourite, Beats of Rage. Now, I'm not going to show this game in its entirety. I'm just going to tell you it's there, it plays really, really well, because I'm going to do a big video on this one, showcasing it. It really feels like it's taken the best of the arcade version, put it into the Beats of Rage engine, and made an awesome title. That's all I can say but keep an eye out. Next up, we have got Doom Simpsons. Now obviously this is just using Doom 1 and basically modifying it. Now you're probably going to say, how does that work? Is it any good? Or I should say Doom 2. But either way, I think you're going to like this one. I think, yes, visually, sound effects, that's all they've really done. There's not a huge change in the controls or anything like that. It's Doom, and that's how most of the mods work. They're not trying to change the gameplay up, but they are reskinning it to kind of make something a little bit different. But I like it. I really like the models. I think, as you can see, Mo there looks really, really good. You can also see Grandpa. You've also got Wiggum. They're all there. And I love it because who doesn't love a Doom mod, and especially Flanders throwing Bibles at you? I think that's pretty damn cool. Now obviously I haven't gone through and played the entire game of this, but it's great to see in this collection. Like I said, these collections that haven't had Doom mods in them before, or Quake mods, but they're certainly present here. Now, Game Gear emulation, I didn't even know it existed until the Gunstar collection recently, and I have to say, as you'd expect, this does work really, really well. There's also a nice selection here to pick from. There's actually quite a few Game Gear games of The Simpsons, which, again, to be fair, I wasn't really aware of. It makes me wonder if I should actually go and deep dive into Game Gear a little bit more. Maybe I think I should. Now, as you can see, this is silky smooth as butter, shall we say? Silky smooth as butter. Either way, looking and playing and everything about the Game Gear ports just seem to work. It just doesn't seem to have an issue. Sound is great, like I said. Visuals are fantastic. The fact it's only 2 buttons, it just works. And a great addition. Now next up, we're taking a look at the Game Boy titles. Again, so many of them that I wasn't even aware. Don't get me wrong, I didn't actually grow up with a Game Boy. I had a Game Boy Advance at one point. But yes, growing up, I didn't have a Game Boy, so I didn't really get to experience the lovely screen that it has and the titles that are on there. Don't get me wrong, nowadays, you can play these titles on systems like the Dreamcast or pretty much anything. Because it really doesn't take a whole lot to run, but it's great because there's a nice library there to explore, and that's why I'm glad these games, the Game Boy games, are in this collection, because I can now go back and actually try and play some of them. Don't get me wrong, this title I'm playing right now isn't great, but it's good to see they're there and playing great. And with this as well, obviously the Genesis emulation has been pretty damn decent across most of these collections so far. And hey, I wanted to try out Virtual Bart, so let's do it.
Virtual Bart.
Now, to be fair, I started off the game not really knowing what was really going along, apart from the fact I was Bart strolling along the screen, going across various different characters, including Homer's head in the jar. But then it kind of switched it up slightly, and I was kind of on this spinny wheel, a bit like Wheel of Fortune it almost felt like. Tap a button, land on something. And then I realised that this was the way that you get into the levels. As you're about to see, select the kind of dinosaur that looks like Bart, and then I'm zoomed into the world of Dinosaur Bart. What I do like though with all of these games is the fact that the Simpsons humour is there, be it the Game Boy stuff, Genesis, you name it, it's all there. They feel like they belong because they're all encasing that humour. I love it. Next up, we're taking a look at the NES. Now, the Swamp Thing game I didn't actually check out, although I can only assume it is either a ROM hack or a secret game. I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, like I said, links are available, so you can check it out yourself. But yes, the NES emulation, as you'd expect, is pretty damn on point here. Audio, as you can hear, no distortion, controls, responsive, visuals, fantastic. So NES emulation, as again, hits it right on the head. Like I said, this collection really is shouting out to anyone who is a Simpsons fan, who's always loved them, although the later ones, not the best in the world, episodes I'm talking, but the games still feel good. They feel so simple. Most of them are just platformers, but I like that. They're easy to pick up and play, and yeah, that's what it should be all about, right? Now, Super Nintendo. This can be a bit contentious sometimes because it isn't always working 110%. Usually it's the audio that seems to be slightly affected. It can be a bit bitty, but when you actually get into the gameplay, it actually seems to work quite well. And that's the same exactly with this title right here, Bart's Nightmare, Super Nintendo, visually great, seems to be there or thereabouts with the speed. You can't, it's not optimized 100%, but it's certainly playable, and that's really what you should be looking for, right? Is, as you can see, it's actually now playing quite well. So there is that bit of distortion at the beginning, but then it gets into its stride, and you probably wouldn't even notice there was an issue. And to that point, that's when it becomes playable, right? Because you're not noticing any issues, and it just feels good. Now, obviously, saving doesn't work on this, which, elementally doesn't really matter too much. So hey, give it a shot, play some Super Nintendo, right? Now, the other one you're probably not going to be too surprised to find out works really, really well is the Master System games. That's right. Checking out Bart versus the Space Mutants again, but this time on the Sega Master System. And yes, you've probably guessed it, working like an absolute dream. It actually looks very, very much like the Game Gear version, which seemed to be a very big theme in the whole Master System Game Gear era. Is the Game Gear version basically was the Master System version, although the aspect ratio changed quite a bit, aka zoomed in a hell of a lot, just so it would work on the hardware. So yes, working great, playing great, I love it. I love the Master System versions.
Now, if I have to be honest, this really is a nice little collection. Yes, some of the emulation isn't 100%, but it's certainly there or thereabouts with most of them. Obviously, let me know what you guys think. As always, like, comment and subscribe. It's Al signing out. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment and subscribe. As well as that, you can also back the channel on Patreon. QR code is down below. But obviously you can check out this video. You can also check out that video. And on that note, it's Al signing out.